What is Trump really negotiating with Putin? How should we respond to his messengers, unclear about who controls Ukrainian territories? Is there a split in Trump's team, and what could it lead to? Let's discuss this now. We're live on YouTube 24. It's Tuesday, April 15th. I'm Iryna Uzlova, and with me is Mikhail Sheitelman. Mikhail, hello. Good to see you.
Здравствуйте, Ирина.
Steve Witkoff is nothing new here, as usual, which is reminiscent of Russian propaganda. Everything is repeated on the shuffle. Witkoff, Trump's special envoy, either on the Middle East or on the Russia-Ukraine war, and sometimes it seems like Putin's special envoy, as you tell me in English-language interviews, has again said that the 5 territories, the dispute, and NATO, all need to be discussed with Putin. And of course, Donald Trump Jr., suddenly saying that the establishment hates Witkoff for his persistent fight for peace in Ukraine and his support for that position. No one in my father's administration fought so hard to end this war and achieve peace between Russia and Ukraine. This, it turns out, is how Steve Witkoff tears his shirt off. Establishment hates him because real leaders fight for peace, not war. Elon Musk also supports him, saying, "We're lucky to have someone like Steven Witkoff. How would we be without him?" Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, at a joint press conference with the NATO Secretary General, who arrived on a surprise visit to Ukraine, said that only the Ukrainian people can make decisions about their country, and reminded that we have red lines. We will not recognize any territories as occupied. They are all Ukrainian territories. Mikhail, what's going on with Witkoff? Why do we need him? I don't understand to whom he is relaying this Russian propaganda. We and the entire civilized world will never recognize these 5 territories. It's only in Witkoff's head such thoughts. Let him realize them with Putin somewhere over tea in his residences. We do not need it. You just struck a nerve with me. So Donald Trump and Elon Musk stepped in to support Steven Witkoff today, right? You see, when Donald Trump Jr. and Musk come out in support of Witkoff on the same day, what does that tell us? It tells us that he needs support. Otherwise, why else would these people be speaking in his defense on the exact same day? It's clear that both of these people, Trump's son and Trump himself, want someone other than Trump himself to endorse Witkoff. It's like secondhand goods, isn't it? I, for one, have heard different opinions about Steve Witkoff, but
Ему нужно было, чтобы кто-то, кроме самого Трампа, вдруг поддержал этого самого Виткофа. Это означает, что Виткоф в полной изоляции оказался. Что кроме Трампа все относятся к нему как, хотел сказать, к штопанному томату, но не буду. Относятся к нему как к подержанному какому-то, да, товару непонятному. И я как бы слышал до сих пор действительно из всяких разных кругов об отношении к Стивену Виткофу как к не самому...
The fact of the matter is that Steve Witkoff is really the white crow in Washington. Who is he? A speculator from New York who was brought here. In Washington, people have worked their whole lives to get into public office. Some in the State Department, some in the Senate, some in Congress. And here a man comes here because he's a personal friend of Donald Trump. But it's important to realize that there are no direct friends for Trump. Witkoff is more like his sidekick. He plays golf, he loses, he buys sandwiches, as we know. In serious professional circles, he's seen as an amateur who doesn't understand anything about it. He came in and he's trying to do something where we've already mastered it, but for him it's all new, so he looks like a complete novice. I think Putin feels the same way about him. Imagine, Putin is a man who has been leading the Russian Federation for 25 years, and Witkoff has been doing what? Real estate speculation in New York. That's all he does. Compare their qualifications. Who did Putin negotiate with? Angela Merkel, Schroeder, Biden, George Bush Jr., Poroshenko, Zelenskyy, Yanukovych, Yushchenko, Timoshenko, and so on. I could go on. And who was Witkoff negotiating with at this time? The same hustlers who were buying something from each other in New York, handing over the keys.
С Ющенко, с Тимошенко. Ну, в общем, короче, я могу написать бесконечный список. А с кем в это время вел переговоры Витков? С какими-то барыгами такими же, которые что-то там друг у друга покупали в Нью-Йорке, ключики им передавал.
That is, to put it mildly, out of line. You know, like in the movie Mama No Grief, hamsters need to be sent to the showdown, and here we get out of step. I used to hear this as a rumor, and now we're seeing those rumors start to be confirmed through supportive actions from Trump Jr. and Musk Sr. Apparently, they've been explicitly asked, support Witkoff. I'm sure neither Musk nor Davidoff cared about Witkoff before. Now they're forced to support him or they'll fire him. He's on the verge of being fired as it is. By the way, I think that's how Donald Trump Jr. sees Witkoff too, as someone out of level.
То есть их прям попросили, поддержите, пожалуйста, Витков. Я уверен, что что Маску, например, до Виткова никакого дела раньше не было. А теперь он вынужден, потому что его попросили, иначе уволят, он же и так висит на угрозе увольнения. Вот. Но Дональд Трамп-младший, кстати, я думаю, что к нему также относится совершенно кто, как Витков, он типа кто такой.
Especially since he says the word of the Pope. This, of course, humiliates Donald Trump Jr., who is now 43 or 46 years old. But he's all daddy said, daddy this, daddy that. It brings tears to my eyes. Yes, the boy supported his daddy. Well done, boy. You want to tickle him, praise him. Well done, boy. You like Uncle Witkoff. He gives you chocolates, right? Good. Next time he'll give you a drum. You'll lead the column for peace. But he's 47 years old now, Mikhail, and still it all comes down to daddy. Daddy, yes.
Вот, это если все это вот так освещать. А дальше...
47 лет, Михаил, 47 лет. А он
47. Да. Ну, его папа, да, папа у него. Папа.
This morning I talked to Taras Zagorodny, a political technologist, and he said pretty much the same thing. The chair is already wobbling under Witkoff. And also these posts by the two great geopoliticians come amidst the Wall Street Journal reporting on the split. Marco Rubio, U.S. Secretary of State, and Keith Kellogg, Special Envoy for Ukraine, are urging Trump to be tougher on Russia, unlike Witkoff. Apparently they know what they're talking about. Judging by the expression on Rubio and Kellogg's faces, Witkoff is disparaging the U.S. and Trump. The thing is, you can't have a chair wobbling under Witkoff because he doesn't have a chair. The only official position he holds is Trump's special representative for the Middle East. Russia is not in the Middle East yet, although its representatives, such as Hamas and Hezbollah, are there. What Witkoff is doing in Moscow is most likely his personal initiative, maybe coordinated with Trump, maybe not. He got on a private jet, went with his wife to Peter, to a synagogue for Passover. But Rubio, who is the subject of the Wall Street Journal article, can be fired because he is the U.S. Secretary of State. The chair could wobble under him. Rubio, even though we have different opinions about him, has shown himself to be the most consistent and independent of all in the administration of the President of the United States.
Поэтому его уволить нельзя. А вот Рубио, о котором идет речь в упомянутой вами статье в Wall Street Journal, уволить можно, потому что он госсекретарь США. Под ним кресло может шататься, может не шататься. Но Рубио, похоже, мы, конечно, к нему относимся по-разному, учитывая его уже даже за первые 3 месяца дела. Но, тем не менее, он показал себя наиболее последовательным и наиболее стойким и самостоятельным пока из всех людей, которые есть в администрации президента США.
The main men are remembered for various scandals. Vols, the signal scandal, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, the lack of activity. Rubio, on the other hand, has not yet been tarnished by anything. Moreover, he has already wrested his position from Elon Musk once. The only scandal that has been leaked clearly is the one between Rubio and Musk, when Rubio said, "Who is this Elon Musk? Get him out of here." This all took place in Trump's office, and no one knew what conclusions he drew. But there were consequences. Trump said he would soon kick Musk out of the White House as his term was coming to an end, and it was time to get back to work instead of wandering around the White House.
потому что Дональд Трамп сказал, что в ближайшее время изгонит сатану, не сатану, это, простите, Илона Маска из Белого дома, что у него, дескать, срок уже исходит, 130 дней и все, и он растворится, что пора Маску на работу идти, а не шляться тут по Белому дому непрекаянному.
This means that for the moment, I emphasize, things could change. Trump could wake up tomorrow in a different mood. But for the moment, Rubio was able to shake off Elon Musk. Notice that while Musk was on the call during Trump's first conversation with Zelenskyy, we haven't seen him in international politics since then. Yes, he later still spoke out in posts criticizing the Italian president, the UK minister, and drowning in alternatives for Germany to do, but he failed everywhere else and generally disappeared from the international scene. Now Musk is trying again to build a coalition with Witkoff and Trump's son against Rubio and someone else. But we don't know that for sure. If Rubio was able to defeat Musk, perhaps he can defeat Witkoff as well. That would be a very interesting and rewarding result for us.
Но если Рубио смог победить Маска, то, может быть, Рубио сможет победить Виткофа. Вот это было бы для нас очень интересным и очень полезным последствием, конечно же.
The editor of the Canadian National Post, Dan Francis, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, has been posting periodically, and our colleagues at New Voice Radio have been following along, translating. We're seeing Michael's original now, which reminds us that Donald Trump actually hit the global trading system in early April. Then last week, he bragged that world leaders were kissing his ass, trying to bargain tariff relief by offering concessions. Interestingly, the man who considers himself a master negotiator completely caved when it came to negotiating with Vladimir Putin. The Russian dictator outplayed the American president, who boasted before the election that he could end the conflict in 24 hours. Not only has Putin refused to kiss Trump's ass, but he is mocking the process by changing the rules of the game, cheating and breaking promises of a ceasefire. This seems to be noticed by Rubio and Kellogg, as we've learned from their statements and your comment. But Trump also can't help but notice that he is already out of cards and that the king is nearly naked while dressing up Russian sleaze. Why would he notice that? He's a self-proclaimed deal-maker, as we know. But who else says he's a deal-maker other than himself? I haven't heard it from anyone else but him and his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. She was starting to claim how he's a wonderful deal-maker. But there is no other evidence. There are the 6 bankruptcies, the facts. There's the money he took from his father and lost. If he lost Dad's money and not his own, that's no indicator of skill either. That's the fate of his and his family. Everyone squanders their inheritance. Grandpa created capital, and Trump has already lost it 6 times, and now his son will lose his inheritance. So claiming he's a master dealmaker is not a fact. I can't rely on anyone's opinion in this industry because I am not a deal maker or a great businessman myself. Here's an example of a great businessman and an opponent of war, Oleg Tinkoff, former owner of Tinkoff Bank, a man who built 4 super successful businesses in different industries. Oleg Tinkoff is a Russian banker, anti-war, and actually pro-Ukrainian. He started by opening the Technosila chain of stores, then sold it, created the Dumplings and Daria factory, which he sold to Abramovich. Then he created the Tinkoff beer plant and sold it, and used the money to open a bank, which became one of the most advanced technology banks in the world.
На эти деньги создал завод пива Тинькофф, продал. На эти деньги открыл банк и сделал его самым передовым, реально передовым технологическим банком в мире.
He didn't manage to sell the bank normally, even though at one point it had a capitalization of $15 billion. But when he spoke out against the war and Putin, it was actually taken away from him. Now, by the way, he has opened something similar in Mexico. This man rarely gives interviews, but he recently talked about Donald Trump. He said, "I'm a good businessman. I have proof. But Trump is a bad businessman, a failed businessman." Apparently, he fought for the presidency to prove to someone that he's a good businessman and can make deals.
категорически. Поэтому, видимо, он даже боролся за пост президента, чтобы доказать кому-то, что он хороший бизнесмен, что он умеет заключать сделки.
He's using the presidency of the United States to prove that he's a good businessman. Like, look, I can do it too. But it's all just falling apart. Where are his deals, his tariffs? He's been preparing this story about tariffs for 2 months, and he announced April 2nd as America's Liberation Day. But a week later, he backpedaled. Economists were divided in opinion, some saying it was nonsense, others saying it was the right way to go. I stayed out of that debate because I didn't know who was right. But a week later, as the stock market was falling, Trump repeated, "I'm not backing down." And the next day, he canceled the tariffs, saying he looked at the stock market, things were going bad.
И снова я не влезал, не говорил, будет так или будет так. Я не знал, потому что это вот одни экономисты так считают, другие так. А я кто такой? Но прошла неделя, в течение которой биржа падала, все рушилось, а Трамп повторял как мантру: я не отступлю, ничего подобного не будет. Когда спросили, а правда ли, что вы собираетесь отменить тарифы? Нет, неправда. А на следующий день отменил. Отменил, сказав, я посмотрел на биржу, все как-то шло плохо.
All of Washington sees this. So, of course, Putin is spinning Witkoff, who has become a laughingstock for America, and apparently needed a boost. Earlier, Trump assured that the economy would grow, but it didn't happen. His economic program has completely failed. Then he said that we will definitely finish off the Chinese. But over the weekend, he slapped tariffs on Chinese tech, including iPhones, after realizing that America could not withstand such an economic war with China. All of Trump's business endeavors have caused him to completely lose his reputation. And it is not only his reputation that has suffered, but America's reputation as well. The United States is no longer a reliable partner for anyone. When it imposes sanctions and tariffs on Europe and its allies, when it threatens its partners with war, when it threatens to invade Greenland, these are serious problems, especially when J.D. Vance went to Greenland and threatened the Danes, saying America could occupy Greenland. After that, the Pentagon had to fire the commander of the Greenland base because he calmed down his troops by saying that Vance's words were nonsense.
Пентагону пришлось увольнять командира базы американской в Гренландии, потому что она написала своим военнослужащим, что не парьтесь, это все чушь, то, что сказал Венс. Ну, потому что Венс приехал и фактически сказал, вам сейчас придется идти в снега, захватывать Гренландию у датчан.
They were used to the Danes selling them bread and wine. But now the Danes won't sell them anything because they have become occupiers. That is, the people who were allies on the base have now become occupiers who are afraid to leave the base at night. They fired the base commander because of this. This is what Trump has brought America to. So why expect him to be able to make a good deal with Putin? What kind of deal? Why? When he meets with the president of El Salvador again and says he's given Putin some kind of deadline, this is the second time. Psychologically, it's probably important, but he doesn't give a specific deadline. It seems to me that he never had a plan A, and there is nothing from the following plans either. Maybe Trump will turn around altogether and say, work it out yourselves. First of all, Trump did give Putin a deadline. It was March 30th. He said there's only a month left. Yesterday, by the way, Zelenskyy pointed out that 35 days ago they agreed to a ceasefire, which the Americans had been asking for strongly. So it's been 35 days, and the truce was supposed to last 30. That's already a lot for a 30-day truce. So now Trump has no way to backtrack. He's not going to say he didn't set a deadline.
На 30-дневное перемирие, которого от нас вот так вот сильно просили американцы. То есть прошло 35 дней, как мы согласились на 30-дневное перемирие. Как бы многовато, да, для 30-дневного перемирия, 35 дней уже прошли. Трамп поставил дедлайн. 31 марта, поэтому, или 30 марта, поэтому уже нет у него шанса дать заднюю в этом вопросе. Он не скажет, до 30 марта, он не скажет, я не ставил этого дедлайна.
It's already been done. If Trump doesn't take action on Putin and impose the promised sanctions on April 30th, the whole world will have questions. What is even going on? Why are his special envoys going to Russia? It will become interesting to understand what is going on. Also, as we remember, Keith Kellogg said that Trump's mandate was to stop the war in 100 days, and those 100 days end on April 30th. So it's all coming together on that day. It's already predictable what the excuse will be. For example, Witkoff said in his latest speech on Fox that Putin doesn't want a temporary ceasefire. He wants permanent peace. Why is he saying this? To stall further and say that a temporary ceasefire is not necessary, but permanent peace is.
Да, временный, говорит, не хочу, а постоянный хочу. А зачем Путин такое говорит, что он временный не хочет, а постоянный хочет? А затем, что тогда можно дальше время-то спокойно тянуть. Ну, дескать, временный нам не нужен, а постоянный, а зачем нам?
Do you feel that an interesting moment is coming? It's like the scene with Ostap Bender, where he brings in a screenplay and is told, "Do you have a sound screenplay?" He replies, "Sound," but they say, "We don't have equipment for sound movies." He then says, "I also have a script that's not mine." They respond, "Not mine doesn't work. It's from the last century." This is the situation with Putin. He doesn't need a temporary peace, and we haven't agreed on a permanent one because you refuse to give up 4 or 6 regions. That's how it will be. Let's give him everything, all of the United States, since it's not ours to give. Apparently, Trump doesn't realize this is exactly what Putin wants. He'll start with European countries and then push further if we start conceding. Of course, we'll never do that, despite statements from people like Steve Witkoff, who have nothing to do with it. Stephen Witkoff keeps talking about a deal between the U.S. and Russia, not between Ukraine and Russia. He does not mention Ukraine at all. He never once says the word Ukraine or talks about Ukrainian territories in his interview. He asks, "What territories?" 5 territories. Which ones? Who said there are 5? What does it mean? 5 territories. When they are 5, they are by some division, right? But he didn't specify that they are 5 Ukrainian territories. It is unclear by what division he considers it. He keeps saying he's close to reaching an agreement between the U.S. and Russia. But what would an agreement between these countries be about? He's talking about business opportunities in Russia. So Russia gives away some businesses like Gazprom or pipes. And what does America get in return? Recognition of occupied territories, for example. And Ukraine has nothing to do with this. We are not on one side or the other. These are their negotiations, not ours. Yes, they can agree on anything, but it is clear that we will never go for it. Mark Rutte, I remind you, NATO Secretary General, met with President Zelenskyy in Ukraine. Rutte said that during the visit, they discussed Trump's important talks with Ukraine and Russia. He stressed that these discussions are not easy, especially after the strike on the center of Sumy on April 13th. But Rutte added that everyone supports Trump's pursuit of peace, and other alliance members, including France and Britain, are ready to take more responsibility. You see, Rutte, who has been to Odessa, where the threat of Russian peace is also felt, says he supports Trump's desire for peace. But what are they supporting when there is essentially nothing to support?
Где тоже, я думаю, увидел приходы русского мира, потому что Одесса постоянно под прицелом, вспомнил Сумы и при этом говорит, что мы поддерживаем стремление Трампа к миру. Что они поддерживают, если поддерживать, по сути, нечего?
It's more like a golden rather than an uneasy negotiation. Yes, not at 17 and not at 170. Yes, and neither does Trump. Yes, not golden, but rather monetary negotiations, because obviously Trump needs something from Putin. Unfortunately, Mark Rutte, since Trump came to power, has dramatically changed his rhetoric and policy. He has become like Trump's enabler, fully justifying his anti-NATO initiatives. Just like Lukashin in The Irony of Fate, you can't fire him that way. And, as we remember, he said that NATO would not interfere if the U.S. decided to invade Greenland.
сказал, что НАТО не будет вмешиваться, если Соединенные Штаты решат захватывать Гренландию.
That is, NATO will not defend its member, Denmark, from American aggression. This is surprising. We are no longer surprised that Rutte has chosen Trump as his master and will serve him as the main sponsor of NATO. It is a pity because he was a good friend of Ukraine, but now he serves Trump. There's nothing we can do about it. Fortunately, it doesn't affect us much. By the way, it is strange that Rutte said that Ukraine will not be in NATO. Didn't he read the security treaty between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine? It clearly states that the U.S. will do everything to get Ukraine into NATO. Probably before his statements, Rutte saw, as we did, an article in the Washington Post where it is reported that the Trump administration has proposed to Gazprom to almost completely stop funding the UN and NATO. And after that, he makes statements like this? They seem to have lost their minds. It's not like Trump is their friend. He is trying to save NATO, no doubt. I'm not talking about money and corruption. I mean his approach. Rutte believes that in order to save NATO, Trump must be persuaded, without abandoning the U.S. in the alliance, to continue funding it. He believes that Trump's appeasement policy is the right way to preserve NATO. These statements only energize Trump, forcing him to work even harder along Trump's lines to keep NATO going. Rutte believes his job is to save NATO, and the key is ingratiation to Trump.